welcome Pyry to the show. You're a tech and IP intellectual property lawyer, and you work at a Finnish company, future-oriented tech law firm Dottir. And you have a particular focus on emerging technologies such as blockchain and AI and related legal questions. And you're also a musician and a graphic designer. So interested to hear what you have to say on that, and you're especially interested in the impact of generative AI on the creative sector, and this is really good stuff. Looking forward to our discussion. So
yeah, happy to be here.
While AI can assist in legal tasks, can it fully replace human lawyers?
Well, I'm anxious to see it will free up some of my time to make more music, which is very redundant nowadays. And I think the previous big like revolution to legal work was the emerging of search engines such as Google, and did it like replace us, or did it make lawyers not needed anymore? No, it didn't. But did it transform the whole field and our work and a little bit of need for lawyers as well? Of course it did. And I think the effect for AI and the legal work will be similar. But of course, the answer isn't simple. And even if I would compare lawyers to doctors, and I would have some health issue, and I will go to Google and type, I have these like symptoms, and the answer would be the symptoms are sign of a cancer. I would get access to how it would be treatable. I probably could get access to the information how I could operate myself, but would I do it? Of course not. And I think it's a little bit similar with lawyers. Our clients get better access to information with AI, which is a good thing, but it doesn't make lawyers not necessary anymore in the future as well.
Everybody I've already interviewed, everybody emphasized the same thing about the need for human touch, for human connection, whether it's about making code, writing code, or whether it's about hiring process. We want to meet other people. We want to be met by other human beings.
Yeah, when you think of legal work or my work as a lawyer, the fun part is discussing with people on legal matters and getting to know how they operate and how we can help themselves. But of course, the manual process of drafting up a document, it's like very tedious and time consuming and not very much fun at all. So of course, well, this is a little bit of a trade secret of lawyers, but I'm going to disclaim it anyways.
I love it.
Of course, lawyers pretty rarely draft up documents or agreements from scratch. We use templates. If it's a good situation, we have drafted up a template before, but of course we use Google and search examples here and there. And generative AI seems to be a very powerful tool for generating templates, which we can work with. And it very rarely, at least now, is a ready document or template or agreement, but it's something to start with. It like mitigates the problem of empty paper, where to start. And in legal work, like templates are very good competitive advantage. And if you start up a law firm, one of the like main problems is that you don't have those access to those templates because you are starting from scratch. So ChatGPT might be solve that issue at some level, but probably not as a whole anyways.
I love it. So what about legal research? What do you think? What's the impact of Gen AI?
Well, I will use the same example I used earlier, Google search, and of course it transformed legal research totally. Previously, we had to get access to books and read them, and it was tedious and boring. And now we Google stuff. But problem with Gen AI and large language models at the moment is that they are very convincing, even if they are not true or not correct. They will provide you with correct answer, nevertheless if it's correct.
With confidence.
Yeah, with confidence, and people don't always understand the logic of language models, and it's like a prediction machine. It gives out answer that is it predicts to be correct or what the user wants to hear, but it might not be true. It can't give you answer that I don't know. It will give you a correct answer, nevertheless, if it's correct or not.
Now I want to hear some example. Do you have any example of some case that Gen AI was used, but it turned out that it was just complete nonsense?
Actually, I do, and some might have heard it, and it comes from the wonderland of court cases, the United States. And one lawyer used ChatGPT with legal research, and it did came up with some really good and convincing cases that were completely made of. And of course, the court and judge figured it out, and now the lawyer is in big trouble.
So the cases were made up.
Cases were completely made up. Yeah, it served the purpose, but they were made up.
Oh, wow! Yeah. Wow. Okay. So we need our own thinking,
yeah,
and our own consideration.
Of course, and I can tell you with confidence that that making up cases isn't something that lawyers do, even if it would be beneficial for us. that crosses the line.
So maybe from there we could continue to concerns, legal concerns, ethical questions, ethical dilemmas of using Gen AI technologies. What do you think?
If you think of copyright and creating things, we both are musicians and we like to create music, so it's a great example. The one thing is that how infringements take place. Of course, generative AI works in a way that we can't necessarily tell how it generates the output. It's a thing someone might have heard called black box algorithms. So we can figure out the process behind the output work. It just gives you some type of work, but we don't know where it came from. And that work might infringe the copyrights or other rights of others. But at the same time, it raises a question, who has the right to the work that the AI has generated? And it's a very complicated issue. There are a million sides to that discussion, but I think those are the main 2 points.
So let's say I produce something. Let's say a background music to a video that Vincit produces. So I publish it under Vincit's name, and I make, with the help of an AI tool, I make some music or some song that reminds really closely, but is not equal to, let's say, some popular song, some like let's say this. I love this Bruno Mars. I'm gonna leave the door open. I'm a little this one, but like sounding something like that.
Yeah.
But that you can recognize the original song, but still is not the song.
Yeah.
I'm publishing it through Vincit, and it's on the background of Vincit video. Is there some concerns I need to take care of, like look into account?
If you would go by the book and under copyright legislation, you would need to have the permission to use those work in the training data. That is something that hasn't been solved yet. It might be impossible for at least like large models, because they scrape the entire parts of the internet. So how they can ask permissions or license? It hasn't been solved yet. But if you would go by the book, you would need to have permission to use.
Do you come up with some other examples or some other areas related to this ownership, copyright issues?
Well, of course, one big issue is the responsibility questions that relate to AI. Who is responsible for the actions of the AI? Is it the user itself? Is it the developer that has developed the AI system? Who is responsible? Because AI or like technological systems themselves aren't that kind of operations, who could be responsible for anything. Laws and legislation revolve around people and like a relationship of people. We don't have any internet laws. We have laws for people that might relate to internet, but in the same way there aren't AI laws per se. There are laws for people who develop AI and use AI and import AI systems, but you get the point. In a way, there aren't like new questions because we use AI and we have been using AI like for like 30 or 40 years at least. The whole machine learning comes from the 50s, from the chess computers. And that is something that people aren't generally aware of, that it's an old technology form. Of course, it has made some huge steps in the recent years.
What's the regulation part? Where is it going right now, or laws related to this?
Good example is like the general data privacy regulation. It was the first of its kind, and it showed an example to the United States and China as well, and they copied it in their legislation. And now EU is drafting up an AI Act, AI legislation. Probably it will come to force next year, the year 24. It's a very complex, very heavy legislation packet, but it will for certainly transform the legal framework of generative AI and AI systems.
Good answer. Can you recall some cases of infringements on existing trademarks or patents when AI generated content was used?
No trademarks or patents maybe necessarily, but copyrights and intellectual property rights as a whole. There have been some cases, unsurprisingly, they are all focused on the United States, dreamland of getting sued. There have been bunch of cases, yeah. And at the moment, I think the biggest cases revolve around, like content banks or stock photo banks. And generative AI is a really, really big competitor to that industry. And there have been cases that it was stable diffusion and it generated photos and it did a pretty embarrassing mistake, and it generated the watermark of the content bank in the output work. And of course they realized that that's our stock photo. You didn't ask permission to use it in the training data. So there haven't been any, so to speak, landmark cases yet, but that might be one of them.
Super interesting.
Yeah.
You said you write your own music. What does it mean to you?
Well, I'm really excited because I'm not that good of an artist or good of an like a graphic designer. So it's a great thing for me that I get little aid or little cheat from these systems. But people tend to forget also that all art is contextual, and people are the ones who make the value of the art, and there's of course the point that we might see something as aesthetic or beautiful, but that doesn't mean that it's like valuable in a way of art piece. And I have been using this as a little provocative example, but if you were an artist before the invention of photographs, and if you could draw up an hyper-realistic image using just conventional methods, you were the best artist of your times, of course, because it was impossible. But when they invented camera, you were a lousy artist because everyone could take photos, and now we have tens of thousands of photos. It's getting a nuisance. What do I do with all these photos? They're not valuable to me, and that is because there is no rarity involved in them. And of course, now that we we have generative AI, and it produces us very beautiful pictures and artworks, and even better than which humans could create themselves. Of course, it takes down the value of that kind of art. I think we will come up with some kind of art form that isn't so easily replicated with AI. If you were the first one to paint the canvas white, you were a genius, and it will sell for 100 millions. And if you will do that again, you were just a loser, and it was worthless. And that like sums up a point.
Biases. Let's talk about biases and algorithms.
Yeah.
How do you ensure fairness and prevent discrimination?
Well, now the lawyer of me is speaking, but EU's AI Act, there are some data governance legislations that try to solve the issue, and of course it comes to that how you compile the training data and data set and make it inclusive in that point. And it a great deal of responsibility for developers to make the data inclusive and diverse. But I've heard the statistic that from all the literature we have, I think 80% is written by white heterosexual males. So of course that is something that we just can't fix. But that is something to keep in mind. Of course, there's a responsibility when you are combining the training data. You should make it diverse and inclusive as possible. But there's a deal of responsibility for the users as themselves.
And you mean that, and you mean that the data that it has, digested is already, it's like these biases are there already embedded.
And generative AI is based on predictions. It gives out the most predictable outcome that the user wants to see. And of course, if the images that it has access to are like 75% or 80% white people, it will generate white people. It thinks that it's the correct answer.
Yeah.
But that's a pretty scary thought that even now I see that great amount of content I see is generated by AI, and it goes back to the data pool, all the content that generative AI has generated. So if it feeds the biases, and in 10 years maybe 90% of all the content we see is generated by AI, how it like feeds the cycle of bias.
Yeah, it feeds itself.
Yeah, I hope that is something that they could fix in regulation, but it will be a matter of time to see how well it works.
Really great points. What advice would you give for businesses that want to integrate generative AI as their day-to-day or, as a part of their working methods? What legal advice or measures should they prioritize to mitigate potential legal risks or liabilities?
Yeah, I have a legal answer for that and a general answer. Legal answer first. You should be aware of that EU's AI Act is coming, and it's a heavy legislation package. Compliance requirements are heavy, and it's something they should be aware of and be prepared of. Of course, in the end, it's the matter of time and money, how much it will take organization to comply with the requirements. They aren't impossible, but it's something they need to be aware of, and of course consult some professional help, hopefully from me or some of my colleagues at Dottir. But like the more fun answer is that if you are using AI in your organization or planning to use AI, now it's a great time, because there's a high possibility that your competitors aren't using it at the moment, and that gives you a very, very great competition advantage at this point. So be open-minded, have fun, but be aware of the risks involved.
If you look towards the future now, what's your estimate? What's your anticipation? How legal frameworks are developing from here? How policies are developing from here concerning generative AI? Yeah, what do you think? Or what should be done maybe in preventing these risks?
This EU's AI Act that I have been talking about will be the big impact in the market in the next few years. I'm not sure how good it will work, but it's something that is coming, and you should be aware of. You can think it as an like a second GDPR, and everyone thinks how big pain in the ass GDPR has been to companies and small companies, and everyone involved. If I think of creative industry, generative AI will for sure be a tool that gives a better access for people to make art and to make content. People might not have the time to have such hobbies or the knowledge. So I think in itself, it's very good thing, of course. Another thing, if you are working in creative industry, if you are making original content by yourself, again, now it's little late, little late to fight
against that.
Yeah, against windmills, so to speak. But you should think how you can benefit from it the most. It's a great tool for getting inspiration, at least, if not anything else. So I think it's a great tool for like low-level content creators and those who are really experienced, but like mediocre mass, that might pose a risk for them.
So Pyry, Niikkonen and Dottir, thank you so much for joining the show today.
It's my pleasure.
It was such a pleasure. Thank you so much.